Hello, English 1. Um, I'm sure it's thrilling to hear my voice. As it is, my voice is a little bit of a mess because I actually do have the coronavirus, and I've been coughing up a storm for the last 3 days. Just so you're aware, I probably contracted it the Friday night after I last saw you. So I'm very thankful for the county, which closed school that Monday and Tuesday because the way coronavirus works, you get it, but you don't actually get any symptoms for a good week, 2 weeks. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I would have come in and infected every single one of you. I would have done it Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then Friday I actually started to feel sick. So I'm thankful for the county for taking action and making a decision that I think is better for everybody. Anyway, my voice sounds terrible and I will try to march on. Today we're going to go over A Raisin in the Sun Act 2 notes going into Act 2. Last time you should have finished Act 1. And in Act 1, at the end of Act 1, Walter found out that Ruth was pregnant and thinking of having an abortion. And his mother told him to be the man his father was. And instead, Walter just walked out of the room. So that's where we are. And as we go through this, we're going to go over certain elements of the play that will hopefully clear a few things up for you, as well as some historical elements, and we'll go over some thematic elements as you move toward your essay. So the first thing you want to do at this point is you want to go to Canvas and go to the Act 2 packet and download it. So pause this video, go to the Act 2 packet and download it. What you're going to do, all of this, you're going to get all of the notes from Act 2 and you're going to have that answered before you start Act 2. So pause this and do that. Okay, you should be looking at the Act 2 packet and you're looking at the notes. This will go over each part of the notes. First of all, assimilationism is the act of encouraging minority cultural groups to be similar to the mainstream cultural group. This means encouraging minorities to act more like the dominant culture in terms of attitude, dress, speech, and behaviors. In the United States, the dominant culture is white, Christian, Northern European, heterosexual, and patriarchal, or male. The U.S. has a long history of expecting immigrants and minorities to assimilate into the dominant culture. And just to drive this home, on my father's side, I'm a first-generation American. On my mother's side, I'm third generation. On my mother's side, her maiden name is Goldstein. Now, that probably doesn't mean anything to the majority of you, but if you're from New York, you would know immediately that that's a Jewish name. So, my uncle, my mother's brother, Michael Goldstein, after he got out of the army in Korea, he wanted to get into advertising. But with a name like Michael Goldstein, he didn't have much of a chance to get into advertising because he would have been marked as a Jew and not been allowed to take that job. Therefore, he changed his name to Michael Elliott, which was his middle name. And since then, he's gone on to be very successful in advertising. But that is an example of assimilation. He chose to not use his father's name and instead use a more assimilated name that allowed him to blend in with everybody. But the thing is, my uncle, true, he had a Jewish name, but he could blend in physically. What do you do if you can't blend in physically? Well, that brings us to Native Americans. Boarding schools were created for Native American children, separating them from their language, their cultures, their languages, forcing them to become more white. And it was said that back at the time, they said something to the effect of, we will kill the Indian to save the man. And as you can see in the upper right-hand corner, you have someone, that was what he looked like in his tribal clothing, and that is what he looks like as a white person. This is actually, by the way, where the sport of football started. If you've ever heard of Jim Thorpe or Pop Warner, they were involved in this, and Jim Thorpe was one of the earliest football players around. He was a Native American, and he went to one of these schools. Okay, so at this point, you want to pause. You want to answer Act 1, Scene 1, Question 1. Sorry, that's actually Act 2, Scene 1, Question 1 in the packet. This is strictly an opinion question. You can't have a wrong answer. You can just have an incomplete answer. But I encourage you to consider, up until very recently, assimilationism was considered a positive quality. It's only been very recently that it has been considered negative. So, number one, Act 2, Scene 1, number 1 in packet. Please answer that. Pause this video now. And this brings us to Black American assimilation. Many of the mainstream look down on Black American culture. I will leave it up to you to ask yourself if assimilation is racist or ethnocentric, but when you consider Black American culture, Black Americans came to the U.S. by force. Many of their African histories and cultural traditions were lost. Nothing can exist in a vacuum, so new cultures developed over time unique to Black Americans in a post-slavery world. For example, music, religion, food, appearance. These are all unique to Black American culture. The dominant culture looked down upon Black American culture, and in many cases still do. In order to gain dignity and respect, many people believed Black Americans should assimilate to the dominant white culture, and I put believed, the D, in parentheses because many people still believe that. Some Black Americans viewed assimilation as a way to become dignified in society. Again, think like my uncle. While others wanted to keep their new Black culture, while still others wanted to explore African roots. So there were 3 possibilities. And that brings us to the Back to Africa movement. Starting in the 19th century, many ex-slaves wanted to get back to their African roots. Ex-slaves founded the country of Liberia, which Mama mentions in the play, in Africa and began to settle other African countries. This inspired others to seek out knowledge about African cultures. Black people began to reject white culture and embrace African traditions, which was shown in names, religion, and fashions. Which brings us to A Raisin in the Sun. Joseph Assegai and George Murchison are what are known in literary terms as foils. They exist to make a point about the character who has to decide between them, in this case, Benitha. Joseph Assegai is symbolic or represents celebrating African culture. George Murchison represents or symbolizes embracing assimilation. And Benitha has to decide what she wants. And if you look at what Assegai says, he's always talking about Benitha being herself, talking about her hair, talking about her speech, talking about assimilationism. Whereas Murchison, as you will see, especially in Act 2, doesn't think much of Black culture or certainly African culture. He's more interested in white culture and assimilating. This is Benitha seeking her identity. She is looking for a way to represent herself through these 2 characters. Who is she going to be? Is she going to be an assimilated person, or is she going to be a person who embraces her African identity or African American identity? Meanwhile, gender roles. Gender roles are expectations that society places on people based on their physical birth, sex, male, female in this case. You think about female roles. Women are nurses, not doctors. Women are supposed to make less money than men. Women don't need to go to college. Women are quieter than men and not meant to speak out. Women are supposed to be submissive and do as they are told. Women are supposed to cook and do housework. Women are responsible for raising children. They're supposed to look pretty and they're never in charge. Conversely, men do dirty jobs, such as construction and mechanics. They're not secretaries, teachers, or cosmetologists. They don't do housework and they're not responsible for taking care of children. Men are in charge, they're always at the top, and as husbands, they tell their wives what to do. They provide for their families, and they are never submissive to others, because being submissive is weak. Which brings us to Walter. Walter, more than anything else, is looking for his identity. This is especially true in the 50s, but it's still true today. Walter feels that it is his place to be the man of the house. But Mama is definitively the man of the house, and you think how many times in the play he says, "Won't anybody listen to me?" He should be listened to. He is the man of the house. So with that said, Walter struggles with being submissive to his white boss. He wants to be the head of this family. He is seeking manhood. And at this point in the play, he thinks manhood comes in the form of money. What you want to do is look out for how that might change over the course of the play. All right, an allusion, for those who remember, is a brief, direct reference to a person, place, thing, idea of historical, cultural, literary, or religious or political significance, and it adds depth to the text. Booker T. Washington. He was one of two dominant leaders in the African American community, and he basically argued that rather than fighting against the Jim Crow laws, black people should pull themselves up through education and entrepreneurship. They should do the best with what they have. His counterpart at the time, the other major leader of the African American community at the early 19th, 20th century, was W.E.B. Du Bois. He fervently disagreed with Washington. He felt black people should not sit passively by and accept lesser rights. They should fight for their rights. Which brings us to Mama. Mama, at one point she mentions Booker T. Washington and how she feels about him, which says a lot about what she values. The thing is, Mama values what she has fought for. She has a home for her children, a God that has always been the centerpiece of her community, a chance for her children to do better than she did, and living without constant fear. But the thing is, her dream to have that house, do her values ultimately get in the way of that dream? Because ultimately, her children have grown up in a different environment with different dreams and different expectations. Mama cannot relate to her children and their dreams, and that's both children. Much of the conflict between Mama and her children centers on this conflict between the two of them. Walter wants money, Benny wants identity, and Mama doesn't understand it. And that is pretty much it. That should be the end of the Act 2 lecture. The assignment will be to analyze the development of a character or characters in A Raisin in the Sun. We've met our key characters. We know our key themes. Your assignment for this week is to read Act 2, Scene 1. In the classroom book, it's pages 78 to 95. Answer all the Act 2, Scene 1 questions. Each answer should be at least 3 sentences long, and you should find at least 2 quotes and fill the chart out. The quote should focus on your choice character and how your choice theme develops through that choice character. The quote does not have to be said directly by your choice character. Make sure you write the page number, even if the page you have is digital and not an actual book. And remember, the book, there is a copy of PDF of them on Canvas, and there is also the audio book as well. Okay, everyone have a good week. Stay safe, practice social distancing, and stay away from me because I'm sick. Goodbye.